Welcome to the UK Fantasy Football Show. And this is the part where I used to say Goals, a weekly podcast that discusses many a football fan's favourite pastime. But for the last 3 months, that wasn't the case. And those 3 months without football are finally coming into an end, though, with the peak of Europe's coronavirus pandemic having passed, fingers crossed. There will be no previous game week results to analyse this week. Instead, I'm joined by Sam Brown and Dave Milner, my fellow contestants on this podcast this season, to assess purely what's coming up for the rest of what remains of the 2019-20 season. I've not seen either of you for 3 months either, actually, and we're doing this from home for the first time, usually in the office in our studio. How are you guys coping in this lockdown life without football?
I'm all right. I've just got that little light at the end of the tunnel now. So the pains of lockdown are just a distant memory. I'm getting excited now. I think it's back. I'm back.
You're back.
I don't want to say. I mean, if you want to compare me to Michael Jordan, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I'm excited.
dropping that in there. Lovely.
Yeah, no one was going to compare you to Michael Jordan. Don't worry, mate. Yeah, I feel a bit more like I've kind of got used to this lifestyle of just living locked away, and now the idea of going outside scares me immensely. With regards to football coming back, mixed feelings really, because I was obviously on an upward trajectory with my fantasy team. I was in hot pursuit of Sam, and this has totally killed my momentum. So I'm a bit concerned about that. From my own football team's perspective, Huddersfield just got into, thankfully, safe of the relegation zone, and I fear that they are going to ruin the return of football for me by being sucked back down into it. So I would imagine, as usual, they will kill my love for the game, as they tend to do. But I'm hoping from a fantasy perspective, I can continue where I left off.
Yeah, I was looking at the script that I had written down for the last show that we did that ended up going out, but just before everything got cancelled, because I think it went out about 12 hours before Mikel Arteta got confirmed as having coronavirus, which was pretty much the house of cards that felled everything. And there was no football that weekend. So if you listen back to that show now, it's a little bit of a surreal sort of alternate timeline into what could have happened. But you'd just overtaken me, and you by quite a bit, actually. I mean, I was falling apart at the seams, my team. You're on 1,509 points, which is 22 points ahead of me. And you are, I'm just doing some quick maths here, I think it's about 85 points behind Sam, which, right, I think before the coronavirus, I would have said, you can't catch him. At this point, it's a pipe dream. There's no chance of it. But I reckon you've got a bit of an outside chance there, considering how fluctuating everything is going to be when football comes back. You're not going to get consistent teams. You're going to get a lot of rotation. You're going to get a lot of substitutes. There's an opportunity there, I think, Dave.
Are you saying I could chance it?
I think you could chance it, yeah. I think Sam could fall apart. He thinks he's champion already. He's acting like he's pretty much he's like he's Liverpool at this point. You know, he's just waiting for that trophy. But I don't know.
2 more wins and he's there.
Two more.
Yeah, I think it's sort of it is a little tighter now, even though 85 points is an awful lot to make back.
It is.
It's only 10 points a week, which isn't a huge amount at all. And given that I've completely forgotten what a good footballer is, whether
how do you even judge them? You know,
it's the judgment that I've used throughout this can't be taught, Dave. So try to go into it on this would be, a failed experiment. It's just intuition, feel, gut, creativity. It's setting a fire in your belly.
Things other people don't see, I suppose.
Yeah. The reality is, I'm just praying to the gods that my guesses work.
Listen, I think if I caught you, it would be because you'd made some colossal mistakes. That's the only chance I've got, really.
You can't get in my head like that.
No, that's the way it is. You're sauntering home now. I mean, all you got to do really for the rest of the season is look at what everyone else is doing at the top and copy that, and you'll get the points and you'll ride home with absolute ease. But the hope I've got is that I don't think you're like that. You quite like you trust your own hand quite a lot, and I can see you going for some outside picks, and that's hopefully where I can take advantage.
Yeah, that's a very, very astute judgment, actually. And I'm often so pig-headed that I will, if there's a striker that is doing remarkable numbers, if he's got a hat-trick every single week, and then he's playing the bottom three teams the next 3 weeks, I will go, well, no, I know better.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that actually at the moment because it's worked out for you this season. So
it's hard to argue with much of it. I mean, when it comes to team selection, there's going to be a lot of variety, I think, in this first game week. Because I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but as most fantasy football players will have noticed, if you go onto the FPL website, you can see that they've pretty much written off any rules when it comes to substitutions, and everyone can just act like they're in the middle of a wildcard week, make as many changes as you want, bring in whoever you want, rip everything apart, start again. Or if you like your team, I guess, then, just make little tweaks here and there. But when it comes to the actual on-the-pitch action, there's going to be some differences because I guess the major one being there'll be no fans in stadiums, which will be a bit of a first for the Premier League. I don't think we had any no-fan matches before lockdown, did we?
No. We just we went straight into it, and I think the idea of there being no fans is pretty interesting from the whole idea of home being more advantageous. I know you've just been working on a piece with Cloudbet, Miles, about what difference that has made because they had quite a bit of data about it. What does it make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, the piece is actually really interesting that Cloudbet had kind of compiled for us and the data that they had available. So they looked at some of the differences, for example, in the Bundesliga results for the home teams. So although it's a small data set at this point, it's only been a few match weeks. They had seen a drop in the percentage of times that the home team wins, for about, I think it was about 50% drop. So you went from a point of view where in the Bundesliga, you had 40% of home wins to now closer to 20%. So there's definitely a definite difference to the fact that there are no fans there. They identified 3 key things, Cloudbet, when it came to what affects a home team favoritism. So you've got your crowd noise, not just for player motivation, but also for referees, because referees, although they don't intend to be, they can be influenced at times by the sort of roar of a crowd. And it's not always just about the number of fans you have there either. It's about the capacity of the stadium and how full it is. So if you've got a 30,000 stadium and you packed it full, then that can be more influential than if you have a 60,000 stadium and you've only packed it about 50% or 60%. So that's one of the factors. The second factor being the familiarity of surroundings. So an anecdote that was used in the piece was Thierry Henry, when he scored an overhead kick for Arsenal in his heyday, he'd scored it at, I think it was Highbury's Clock End. And he said that the only way he could have scored that goal was there because he memorized exactly where the net was in relation to the huge clock behind the goal. And so he was able to score from that angle, which is quite interesting. You don't tend to get that sort of insight usually with how players respond to things. But, familiarity is a big part of it. And then the third thing is ease of travel, which sounds relatively insignificant. But, if you're traveling 15 minutes to get to the stadium as opposed to 2.5 hours, then that will, at the end of the day, affect your routine, affect your mindset a little bit, and it all plays into those factors. So it doesn't completely eliminate the home advantage, the fact that there are no fans, but it does change. There is a noticeable difference at the same time, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. These guys are obviously professionals. It's their job to play as hard as they possibly can for every possible minute, but I just can't help feeling that it'd be a lot easier to slip into a more relaxed, almost training ground match because they're just booting it about. You'd be able to hear the echoes of the ball as they thwack it. And you just look at some of the friendly results so far. There's been a lot of goals. Like, is it Liverpool won 6-0, Arsenal lost 3-2. Then United had to have Man United had to have an internal friendly because the Stoke manager Michael O'Neill got diagnosed with coronavirus on the day, and that was ended up 4-4. So I think that's quite interesting from United's point of view that a 4-4 friendly internal friendly probably shows they weren't taking it as seriously as perhaps a standard friendly would be. Whether that's because they don't want to get everything, they don't want to injure each other, or they're just struggling to really ratchet it up, the intensity up, playing, almost like kickabout matches. It could affect them and other teams going, when the real action starts.
It must start to feel like training at some point in the game when you just, because obviously these guys play training matches every day. There'll be a point of them where the atmosphere doesn't provide that adrenaline rush, or doesn't kind of maybe put a bit of fear in somebody over some certain situation. I personally, I see teams like, Manchester City obviously have got some amazing quality on the pitch, and I think one of the only advantages other teams have against them is that they might have a bit of a home crowd who can maybe ruffle some of the feathers in that team. Probably the same with Liverpool as well, who just like these well-oiled machines, I think, are just going to absolutely run riot. We could see some ridiculous scorelines because they'll just go through the motions. I don't think there'll be anything to intimidate them or to knock them off their stride slightly. Maybe some other teams as well who perform well when the crowds are really getting behind them are going to really struggle. Like your Burnleys, for instance, who've got that kind of like, tight ground with the fans on top of the pitch. A bit of, that old-fashioned kind of stadium feel to it. Sheffield United, I don't know. Obviously, this is a double game week for them coming in first time as well. That's another thing that I've kind of thought, are they going to be able to pick up where they left off now? Is there a bit of a factor before where they were really driven by this adrenaline, that they're doing really well this season, and the fans were 100% behind them, they're creating an atmosphere at Bramall Lane as well? Are they going to be the same in this weird scenario?
I think they will be. I think what they've gone, at this stage in the season now, it's not a case of momentum that has allowed them to perform so well. I think they will have a inbuilt confidence now that they deserve and are suitable to be, rocking up at the 4th, 5th, 6th in the table. So momentum, I don't think, is playing into it anymore. I'd like to think there is pure confidence in them that they're sat at this table playing with the big boys, and they deserve to be there.
Yeah, I think they're a bit different, actually. I agree with you on that, because I think they've got to where they are this season by being super organised. So I think, in a lot of respects, it'll be they'll be able to carry that on. Yeah. I hope so, anyway, because I've actually brought some Sheffield players in.
What I do hope is that, and my prediction, this is not a game-changing hot take, but the goal of the season will be from one of these 92 matches that remain, because there'll be a little bit more of a training feel to it. And in training, you just see players scoring like the most ridiculous of goals. They're all a bit more relaxed. There's not that pressure. And obviously, there's going to be the pressure of playing a competitive match, but I still think every now and then it'll just drop for someone, and they'll go, yeah, whatever, I'm 35 yards out. I'm just going to smash this like I do every day in training. It's like when you watch, I've seen clips of like LeBron James just stood in the centre circle at their practice court, and he drains like 50 half-court shots in a row. But he'd never do that in a match. So I think we're going to see quite possibly the greatest goal of all time scored in the next 92 matches.
Well, it won't be, though, because it won't have the crowd, because the crowd won't be there to kind of... The crowd's like part of a great goal, isn't it? It might be like building up an attack or something. The crowd might be getting behind that moment, and then all of a sudden it kind of comes to a big crescendo with an overhead kick into the top corner.
Baloney.
It is. That's true.
At no stage when I have watched an amazing goal have I thought, the crowd played a great part in that.
It's got that momentum to it, though. It kind of like adds to that flow of the whole goal and everything. I can imagine there will be some good goals scored during these two remaining games, but they'll also have that soulless feel to them, like no one was there to see it,
Yeah, you wouldn't want to play it back on the
TV. Just pipe a little bit of crowd music over it. I can't wait for a great goal to be ruled out by VAR, Dave, in a soulless stadium. How's that going to make you feel?
That's your vision of football for the future.
Well, hang on. Doesn't the empty stadium mean VAR's all right for you now because the fans in the stadium aren't affected?
Well, essentially you've sucked everything out of the game that really matters, so you might as well just stick VAR in there as well, might you? So you'll be quite happy sat at home with your FIFA 20 crowd noise on, VAR playing in the background. It'll be,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It'll be like a FIFA sim of a game, won't it?
Just move with the times, Dave. Move with the times. Technology is your friend. Have either of you done much to your teams?
Not yet. We'll come starting a little bit. I don't want to jump the gun too much. I want to finish with that flurry. I thought what we'd do next is look at the games that we've got coming up. The fact that there will be, I think, is it just doing quick maths, 14 games this game week? Yeah. No, 12 games. Sorry, 12 games this game week. But 4 teams are playing twice. So you've got Aston Villa, Sheffield United, and Man City, Arsenal being a bit of a midweek match this coming week. And then you've got the usual games around the weekend. So I'll quickly just run through them. You've got Norwich, Southampton, Spurs, Man United on Friday night. And on Saturday, you've got Watford, Leicester, Brighton, Arsenal, West Ham, Wolves, and Bournemouth, Crystal Palace. Followed by, on Sunday, Newcastle, Sheffield United, Aston Villa, Chelsea, Everton, Liverpool. And then on Monday, this is a Monday night match, you've got Man City against Burnley. So one feature, I guess, that we're going to see with this restarted Premier League is that pretty much every match will be staggered so that everything can be on TV, wall-to-wall Premier League football, whatever country you're in. And that's very much the case this first game week. So lots to watch. I mean, we've been completely absent of football for ages, and now suddenly we're going to be gloating on it, I guess. What do we think? First impressions looking at that, I guess we're going to gravitate towards Man City and Arsenal players.
Yeah, I mean, it's a funny odd little game week. I think, it's not too dissimilar to like the first day of the season in that there's no form to be basing everything off. And there's no real gimme matches that stand out. I mean, City Burnley right at the end is the only one where you think, all right, there's a wholesale advantage there. But like City Arsenal, Arsenal under Arteta have been looking quite a bit sharper. So I think there's as we've already said, I think there's going to be quite a few goals in it. But I could easily see Arsenal, really having picked it up. So there's no definite matches that have jumped out of me as I need to absolutely pile into this with specific players, which also has affected my captain choice quite a bit.
Yeah. What about you, Dave? Any first impressions looking at that game week list?
No, I mean, other than, I've seen on Twitter, obviously, a lot of people are piling in those double game week players. I think if you do that, you just got to be wary of like what price point I suppose those players are at and whether you can swap them if you want to, and maybe they're not ones for the necessarily the future or the rest of the season. So I think it's a difficult one. I agree with Sam. It's like start of the season really. We've got a few pre-season fixtures. We're hearing stuff coming out of these friendlies that are playing at the moment, and are you judging Arsenal on the fact that they've lost to Brentford, like for instance, and Liverpool have won 6-0. Liverpool have only got a couple of games now to get the league title wrapped up, and from there on, is it worth? How will Liverpool play? Will they rotate massively for the rest of the season? So we've kind of got this opportunity.
I think there's definitely going to be rotation within Liverpool because you've got the 5 subs now, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a good thing for fantasy. And it's also an enormous burden because I think attacking players will, you could almost see a wholesale attacking lineup change within a match. So the idea of like Aguero doing 90 minutes, I think, is completely out the window. But it will mean that the cheaper players, so whether that's like Greenwood or Nketiah or Martinelli, will be getting much more consistent minutes because they're not one of 3 now; they're going to be one of 5. And I can't see given the ferocity of the fixtures and how quickly they pile up, I can't see teams still sticking to 3. I think that most of them will look to use the 5 just to give guys a bit of a rest, knowing they're going to be playing in 3 days' time, and then 3 days' time after that, and then 3 days' time after that.
It's going to make it a bit more frustrating when you pick players who are sort of on they're rotational players, I guess. So they might not play, and if they don't play, it's not the end of the world because you might have someone coming in who will get you some points anyway, who's the guaranteed starter as your first sub. But if they're coming on because they're one of 5 subs out of 9 that the managers can pick, then you might get a few more 1-point wonders when it comes to the first team. It's going to be difficult to kind of juggle. I mean, Liverpool, they definitely will rotate like all teams, but I guess they've not really. Whereas you certainly, 4 months ago, you might have said, oh, well, they'll have the FA Cup, they'll have the Champions League to try and juggle. They're out of both those now. It's pretty much just the league they've got left. So, I mean, I guess they'll have one eye on next season. Maybe Klopp will try out some players who he isn't sure if, he wants to keep them or he wants to offload them. Maybe we'll see some youngsters get a bit of a chance in the first team with there being no pressure, essentially.
Yeah, I think Minamino will probably get a lot of game time.
Yeah.
Shaqiri will probably end up getting quite a bit as well, just to see whether he's going to be worth keeping around. But then the likes of Lallana, I think we'll get a couple of matches, but he looks like he's on his way out. Wijnaldum is still yet to sign up for a longer contract, so he's obviously pivotal to their team. So you don't know whether he will end up being phased out because they want to start bedding in and blooding a potential replacement, or in terms of one of the youngsters, or whether they're going to keep using him because they believe he's going to be signing a contract, or and he's that pivotal to their team as well.
The way I looked at it earlier was I wasn't really looking at. I looked at this week's fixtures, and then I kind of moved on from that a bit and started thinking about the teams that have still got plenty to play for between now and the end of the season. So I ended up focusing a little bit on your Manchester Uniteds, your Wolves, potentially Sheffield United, as well as teams that are kind of fighting for some of those Champions League spots, and then some of the ones that are potentially going to be getting out of that relegation zone at the bottom of the Premier League as well, such as Watford, for instance, who have been more impressive since Pearson took over, and I've got a couple of players in there that are worth fantasy picks. So they've got Leicester in this game week, which to be honest, I think that game could go either way. Leicester are nowhere near the team they were at the start of the season, in my opinion. I don't think I've got any Leicester players left in my side. Obviously, Vardy was the one that everyone was kind of piling on with, but then we kind of saw his goal scoring rate really drop off. It'd be interesting to see if he can rekindle that a bit now the season's restarted. But yeah, immediately I was drawn to these kind of Arsenal double game week, for instance, or Aubameyang's got to go in. I started looking at that as an option, but beyond that, I just kind of started thinking this is an opportunity now to build a team that's suitable for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
and looking at teams like Wolves, like I said, I've gone in quite heavy on Wolves because I feel like they'll be desperate to get into that Champions League. They've not been there recently. They've not. Obviously, Manchester United want it, but there's an expectation from Manchester United fans that will happen. But I suppose Wolves would be a hell of a story for them getting into the Champions League for next season.
What does your team look like then? Should we start having a look through these players? Who have you picked?
Yeah, let me just get So I've kind of stuck with goalkeeper Gator, who is Palace's. You could swap that out for maybe Henderson potentially. I think I've got enough money to do that, but I would be going all in on Sheffield United. What I've done is I've replaced Tanganga at the back, who I had from Spurs, with O'Connell from Sheffield United, as he has played every minute of every game this season for Sheffield United. Sheffield United are second best defence in the league. Can't believe I didn't have more Sheffield United defenders in my team earlier, other than Lundstrom, obviously, who has been a pretty good pick this season. But again, he's one that's just in and out of the team. I'd imagine it'll be the same for the rest of the season with him. So we'll see how it goes with him. So it's Lundstrom and O'Connell have come. Lundstrom's already in. O'Connell's in now for Tanganga. And I've got Van Dijk and Trent Alexander-Arnold still at the back with Kelly. And then in midfield, stuck with Kevin De Bruyne, who I imagine will just have so much fun, for the rest of the season. It'll be like a kid in an adventure playground.
I don't know. I'm worried about De Bruyne. I think he will be one game in, one game out.
Yeah, I guess that's the only thing with him. We don't really know how much he'll play.
Mm.
I mean, that was another thing. I was looking at Man City and I was thinking, what have they got left to play for, really? I mean, I think they'll get the results, but they could be out of the Champions League next season as well. We don't know that yet, so there's not a great deal left for those guys, but we'll see. Manchester United is an interesting one. I think they'll do all right. I'm hoping they will anyway, because I'm going to bring Martial in for Mo Salah, who that frees up a bit of cash for me. Hopefully Martial hasn't put on too much weight during the lockdown.
I know he looks good. He looks good.
Does he?
Yeah.
I know you've been frustrated with him in the past, Sam, but like I can imagine he would be one of those who would like be like just feet up, Xbox on, not move for like
I
3 months.
think he's straight out the McTominay camp of just physical perfection.
Right, okay. So yeah, yeah, it did. Yeah. Who else have I got? I brought Son in for Spurs. I think following his military training, in contrast to Martial's lockdown, I would imagine Son's lockdown's been a lot different, and he'll come back and be firing on all cylinders. The only thing that worries me about that is the Tottenham thing, which, like Spurs, who knows? But Son seems to just plough on whatever's going on around him. So he came in for Saka, actually, due to some of that money being freed up by Salah going out. Doucouré staying in. I know that Sarr is another option for Watford. As around a similar price that other people going for. I'm sticking with Doucouré through loyalty, really. I compared the stats with him and Sarr, and they're pretty similar, to be quite honest. If one of them doesn't score, the other one seems to nip in there and score anyway. So, and still got Fernandes in there, Bruno Fernandes. I imagine he's been brilliant since he came to the Premier League. Totally sticking with him up in midfield.
It's going to be an interesting one with Bruno, though, because you've got Pogba as well in there.
Is Pogba going to play then? Do we think is he definitely going to play?
No idea, mate. No idea. It looks like Real, aren't looking to purchase him this season. There's no Euros for him to be occupied with. So, in theory, it's kind of what he's paid for.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So up front, I'm sticking with Calvert-Lewin. I was trying to get. I played around with dropping him, but because I don't think Everton are necessarily going to finish the season that well. But if I look at the consistent scorers, of which there aren't actually that many in Premier League forwards, because you go through all the ones with the most points, and you end up finding that a lot of them haven't actually scored that recently, aren't really on any kind of run of form. They've either kind of got their goals earlier in the season or whatever. Whereas Calvert-Lewin's different to that. He is actually on a good run of form, and he does score against good teams. So it doesn't really matter. He seems to find himself on the score sheet. So I think I'm going to stick with him. And then what I've done is I've gone double Wolves up front: Jimenez and Jota.
Nice.
Don't ask me if that's going to work out or not. But
it's certainly unorthodox, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like I kind of like I said before. I feel like Wolves are going to have a strong finish to the season, and I'm hoping either of those will score in every game between now and the end of the season. So I can't remember who I asked there. I think it was Danny Ings, who I think some people are kind of like going with for some points between now and the end of the season as well. But who knows? And yeah, I can't remember who my other striker was at that point. But yeah, Jota and Jimenez are both in there. But that may change between now and Wednesday.
Yeah, Ings is the most dropped player currently in this game week. So I think it's 116,000 people have dropped him. So
wow.
Salah
He's got 140 points. He's 7.1 million, 140 points. One of the best returns.
He must be one of the big losers of the summer, because he would have probably gone to the Euros, wouldn't he, with England after that season?
For sure.
God, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But now Rashman and Kane are back. I just can't. I wouldn't see him going now. Same with Tammy.
Yeah.
Because next year he's not going to be playing for Chelsea. it might be the glory sub. Werner will be taking his place. He'll be bossing the championship though.
I guess so. I still don't buy that he's a championship striker. I'm sorry.
He's an amazing championship striker.
He is the top class one.
It is amazing championship.
The most transferred in player is Jack Grealish, with Aston Villa having a double game week, and the fact he's a bit cheaper than some of the other options. He is 6.4 million. Sam, did you decide to pop with Grealish, or have you gone in another direction?
This is me dropping my team bomb. So have either of you two got your wild cards left?
I don't think so, no.
No, I don't think so.
I think I do, but I can't see it on the thingy to see whether I've got my wild card. So I've taken.
It doesn't tell you, does it?
No, because it's got the unlimited free transfers. So I've taken a risk of presuming that I do have a wild card left. So I've used all my free transfers to go full tilt on the double game week, because I don't think, now that the season has almost been reset to a degree, that there'll be any other double game weeks. It'll just be game week 31 plus 32 plus 33 plus, all with 10 matches in. So my team, have either of you got any of your chips left either?
I'm pretty sure I have my free hit. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think I've got bench boost and that's it.
Damn, I might give away my tactic here. Anyway, so you copied me. You've copied me all season anyway, Dave. So you might as well carry on. So my keeper is Henderson. I've got a back three of Kyle Walker, Brandon Williams, and O'Connell of Sheffield United. So I've got out of those, that back four, including the keeper. Yeah, absolutely. I've got 3 double game weeks, and Brandon Williams is, just loyal. Everyone's allowed to, don't have to follow, use their head. Go with the heart sometimes, guys. It's healthy. I've got a midfield of El Ghazi, who's got 2 matches. Fernandez, because he's Fernandez. De Bruyne, 2 matches. Grealish, as you predicted, Miles, 2 matches. And Maddison, because I feel he is going to be, Perez is injured apparently. I think Maddison will pick up where he started last season. Up top, I have Aguero and Aubameyang. On my bench, I've got Leno, Nketiah, Egan of Sheffield United, and Nathan Ake, who's playing Crystal Palace at home. And I'm playing my bench boost. So
are you playing as well?
Yeah. So I think I've got 11 players on double game weeks. But
wow. That is a good idea.
You're going in hard for that then, aren't you?
Yeah. So it's massively reliant on Sheffield United clean sheet at some stage. Aguero and Aubameyang and De Bruyne are playing every match and every minute.
Scoring a few, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be really, really helpful. So, yeah.
I'm definitely going to copy that idea.
Yeah, of course you are, mate. And then I'm hoping that I still have my wild card, and then I can change it all back to a team that is based on at least 1 week's worth of form, that will include Liverpool players, Tottenham players, Chelsea players, etc.
Did you have any Liverpool players now? I didn't.
I had Salah.
Salah, right? Okay.
Yeah, just Salah. And I had my team geared up for City Arsenal as a double game week anyway. So I had Aubameyang, I had Aguero, I had Saka in there. But yeah, this is I'm quite happy with it. I was toying with putting David Luiz in, but I think if anything, given the goals are going to be dropping, they're playing Brighton away. Maybe I will put them in. Who knows? Either way, if I have a great game week, I've won the league. If I don't, then I think I'll still end up with just an average score of 40-ish, 50.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way with all those double game week players that unless the teams are completely like Guardiola just picks a B team or something like that for both games, which is pretty unrealistic. You'd think that you will get some points, even if it's attritional.
That's the hope.
That's the hope. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be pretty hard to catch this week. Then I guess I'm going to cling on to the hope that you've completely forgotten that you don't actually have a wild card.
That is the key. That is the key to it all.
It's a gamble. It's a bold move. No, I'm going to save my free hit and my bench boost for a week when I'll try and use them together. Maybe once it's a bit clearer who's going to play and what the sort of teams are starting to look like, or like when, I don't know, Man City are playing someone who are terrible and they're at home and they've got no other matches around them, so you know that Aguero's going to smash in at like 4. But we'll see. You guys have obviously done your teams and you've put a lot of thought into it. I won't lie. At this point, I'm very indecisive because on one hand, it's great that I can make unlimited transfers because my team is terrible. Like, I cannot believe I let it get into this state. It's shameful. I do a fantasy football podcast and it's this bad. It's embarrassing. But it's a chance for me to rise from the ashes a little bit, like Phoenix, and hopefully catch Dave at the very least. Not finish
that
last.
Is sad. That's sad in itself.
Yeah. But I mean, at the moment, my team, to be honest, it's quite tailored towards. I can't remember the fixtures off the top of my head because it was 3 months ago. But there must have been Arsenal against Man City coming up because my team is very.
That was the match that was binned off, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh yeah. That's true. Because my team is very focused on Man City and Arsenal players. So I've got Aubameyang, I've got Aguero, I've got De Bruyne, I've got Saka, and so I will probably leave it at that because I don't really want to overdo it with Man City and Arsenal players. And those are probably the key ones that I did want to try and get in there if I didn't have them. And so other than that, I probably will make wholesale changes. I mean, my problem is that I've got a load of players who I'm going to get rid of Calvert-Lewin, for example. Like, he's 6.3. I'm going to get in the cheapest striker I can find who might play. Maybe Martinelli. Do I really want to go 3 Arsenal? I'll think about that. Or, IU or someone who's really, really cheap and just claw back some of that money. Like Dave, I do want to try and get in Son because I think he's going to be in good shape after his military training. And, if you're going to rely on any Spurs player, then Son's a good one. I've got Almiron. This is a great opportunity for me to kick him to the sidelines and forget that I ever had him.
Thing is, Miles, you know full well all you'll do is just put a different Newcastle player in.
No, but this is the thing. So Newcastle had a great, we had a decent home form this season. I actually looked at this as we were talking, and our home form wasn't that good, but we didn't concede many, which obviously doesn't include Almiron in any sense. So it shows that my decision-making was a bit flawed. But I think that we probably will suffer a bit from the fact that at home, we're not going to have the same good support that we might usually have. So Almiron's gone. No Newcastle players are coming in. Screw that. They'll probably just sort of simmer out for the rest of the season. I do have Doherty. I'm not really sure what to do with him because he's 6.2 million. And it feels like he could get some decent points. Like, Wolves have some good fixtures coming up. They have West Ham this coming weekend. They have Bournemouth. They have Villa. Arsenal, Sheffield United and Everton are all games that they could get some good points in. All also potential rivals for that European spot. So that would be key for them, that little fixture run. And then they finished with Burnley and Crystal Palace and Chelsea, 2 out of 3 of those games being pretty winnable. So their run to the end of the season is decent. So I'm tempted to stick with him. I need to sort my goalkeepers out because they're both terrible. So I'll think about that a bit. I think Lewis Dunk has been there all season for me, so I'm hesitant to drop him, and he's pretty cheap. Brian, who do they have? Oh, they have a terrible run, though. No, I'm dropping him. Changing my mind on the whim here. See, I'm so indecisive when it comes to this team. This is why I haven't settled on it yet, but I will settle on something that hopefully isn't terrible and hopefully can reclaim that second spot against Dave. Because I think this is the first time that I've been last all season, and it just so happens to be by far the longest game week that I'm stuck at the bottom. So it'd be nice to get back on.
You've been bottom for longest then, haven't you?
No, I think Dave was bottom for longest. He was 5 months, 6 months.
I don't think I wasn't bottom the whole league though, was I? I had an amazing start, didn't I? Which that first week just set me off quite well, and I clung on to. Don't know. I was a first or second. I mean, I fell away pretty quick. But
yeah, you were first in the first week.
Yeah, I think you were first, and then Sam made his wild card pretty early on, didn't he? and then
Oh, you finished
Must have
August
taken a
top.
while.
You finished it August top, and 233 points.
I'm not really buying into this Grealish thing. Like, I know obviously Man United fans are getting quite excited about the fact he might sign for him and he's going to look great with his gel back hair and his little socks in that Man United kit.
And his calf muscles.
And his beautiful calves. But they've got Sheffield United next, haven't they? They've got Newcastle then. Is that right? Villa? Yeah.
They've got Chelsea the weekend, I think.
Chelsea, yeah. Hang on a second. But they have got quite a tough run of fixtures beyond that.
Yeah, but
they've got Wolves and Liverpool coming up.
They've had a tough run of fixtures all season, though. You know, they've only kept a few clean sheets. They're obviously knocking around the relegation area.
So the second bottom.
Yeah, so they are a, you know, by the Premier League standards, a bad team. Grealish is by far and away their best player, though. There's rumours about joining United. You know, been very quiet over the last 3 months. I think I'm more Grealish hyped because of the fact he's Villa's best player. Especially this week, they've got a double game week. Don't know if I'd keep him in after that. But he's done well this season. He's got points. I think he'll, if anything, just carry on and get more of them.
I think Sheffield United's a tough game. I won't imagine he'll do much against them. And then the Chelsea match is a yeah. I was going to say they're at home, but
I could easily see Chelsea getting Villa getting spanked in that, because Chelsea have signed Werner for next season. They've signed who was the chap from Ajax?
Oh, Ziyech.
And they've been linked with Havertz as well of Leverkusen. So I could see Abraham and Mount and Barkley, obviously my pre-season pick, Ross Barkley, absolutely coming out the blocks for this. And Loftus-Cheek if he's back, because Chelsea are actively looking to, improve their team in the positions those guys play in. They're essentially fighting for their starting spot for next season already. This is the prime audition time for them. So they've got to turn it on. In fact, I might put Mount in instead of Maddison for that very reason.
You just talked me into that, actually. So thank you for that tip.
Yeah, I think like those positions from 4th to 7th in the Premier League, that's like those teams, I think we're going to see them excel. Well, certainly go for it between now and the end of the season. They've got a lot to play for.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, you say 4th to 7th as well. I mean, Arsenal are 9th. I mean, and it's not unreasonable to think they could try and claw their way back into it. I don't think they will. But
how can they I agree. I think they'll be better between now and the end of the season. But you look at the teams above them and what they've got to play for. I can't imagine them. I mean, you're probably relying on 3 teams there to drop a serious amount of points if Arsenal are going to get back into it.
I mean, I think the Champions League is a bit of a pipe dream unless Man City get banned for next season, and maybe they could squeak 5th if they got really lucky. But I mean, let's say best case scenario for them, they could win their game in hand against Man City, and all of a sudden they're only 2 points off 5th, which, again, if Man City get banned from the Champions League, would mean a place in the top 4 essentially, by default in the usual sense. So it's not impossible. It's unlikely, and they've got the talent there. I guess it's just whether they can win games consistently, which has evaded them all season, really.
Are Man United going to finish 3rd, though?
I don't think so. Sam still thinks so.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, there's some doubt there, wasn't there?
No, I don't think it's. Yeah, we've got a £80 million midfielder coming back. I'm about to sneeze. Oh my God. It just got to the tip of my nose there and then stopped. That was a really attractive face.
It's like when he knows he's telling a lie, or just like it's like deceiving himself. Just
so, yeah, I think Rashford's back. You've got Bruno. What is possible? McTominay's back now, and yeah, I think this could still easily do it. With the 8 points behind Leicester.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a lot of beneath Liverpool, which is pretty much just at this point a write-off, barring the world's most shocking collapse in football history. There is a lot to play for in that top 4, top 6 area. Relegation still up for grabs. There's a lot of teams that you'd say don't know their fates yet. Norwich is 6 points off safety, but even they aren't necessarily with a good run of form. They couldn't claw the way out of it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at United's fixtures to the end of the season. So Spurs away, win. Sheffield United at home, win. Brighton away, should be a win. Bournemouth at home, should be a win. Villa away, should be a win. Southampton at home, Palace away, West Ham at home, and then they finish the season with Leicester away. That's decent. That's as good a run as you could possibly ask for. It could even come down to Sunday, 26th of July, 3:00 provisionally, the battle for third.
It'll be interesting. I mean, I think we said this about United before. They've been so good against the top teams. It's against the lesser teams that certainly the first half of the season they weren't great with. But then against my sort of prediction, they did look stronger against some of the so-called weaker teams. It's sort of before the lockdown hit. Bruno Fernandes seemed to have been a big part in that. So if they can keep that up, then definitely third is within reach. Do you know what I
think I'm going to do as well? Is I might put Jesse Lingard on my bench. Not now, but in like a week or two when the rotation's starting to kick in, because I think it will be coming on for 30-minute bursts to really liven teams up when they're starting to flag against increasingly tired defences, and I think he'll start a few games as well, and he will finally score, or maybe even provide an assist.
Something.
I'll copy you to a degree, but I won't be copying that. That's just a honey trap, isn't it? It's basically like, yeah, sure, Sam. Sure, you're going to do that. I believe you. And I know you are, but I'm still not going there with Lingard.
Right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, I was going to say Lingard's got 25 points this season.
On that absolutely... I'm not really... I'm not really sure with good faith we can recommend that for listeners to make that substitution. But if you want to do that, Sam, then best of luck.
Bear in mind.
Let's wrap this up then. Dave, Sam, thanks very much for joining us today. Podcast listeners, you can join our league and test yourself against us all season long in the public league. The code to type in on the FPL website is NHC4WZ.
Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, follow on Spotify, or however you listen to podcasts on your favourite platform. Leave a review if you liked it, and if you didn't, what are you still doing here? Check out Goal for your daily dose of football news from the Premier League and around the world. Thanks for listening.